Hello and welcome to Off the Shelf Reviews. It's Gaming Friday. I'm Gary.
And I'm Geoff.
And today we are taking a look at Space Hulk Deathwing.
Yeah.
Which currently is only available on PC, on Steam.
Yeah.
It came out December, just last year, 2016.
Yeah.
And it was developed by Strumon Studio.
Strumon, yeah, or something. Strumon. It's a weird name, isn't it? Yeah.
It is a weird name, yeah. And they had some assistance with Cyanide Game Company,
Right.
And
Cyanide Studios.
Cyanide Studios, which I'm really excited about their next upcoming game after.
Yeah.
They're making Call of Cthulhu, which is due out later this year.
Cool.
And that's going to be available on all platforms. And so is this eventually. As I said, right now it's only available on Steam. But 2017, it's supposed to be seeing a PlayStation 4 and an Xbox One release.
Yeah, it's definitely been sort of designed around controllers, I think.
Well, I didn't actually think it would ever arrive on consoles. I thought it would just stay on PC, and from the negative reviews and criticisms that I have heard about this game, I thought that developers would have probably just abandoned it and not given it its attention, and probably then not turning up on consoles. But apparently it still is.
Yeah.
And I know when you got the game over the Christmas, you were slightly disappointed with it.
Well, when the beta came out, I thought, well, there's way too many problems for them to fix this in a reasonable amount of time. There's just no way. And when it actually came out, it was pretty much like exactly as I imagined it. It was a broken mess, really. So hang on, I'm just going to give myself an assault. No, I'm not. I'm going to keep my four swords because it was pretty damn good. I'm the librarian here. It was very poorly optimized. You can see what they're trying to do, like when it came out, but you could see that the game was completely unfinished. It ran like an absolute piece of dog shit when you had loads of aliens on board, and you couldn't really get like proper animations of the aliens out. Just a lot of the game felt really sort of like loosely hung together. The online play was clunky and really laggy. The netcode needed a lot of work. It was just an unfinished game. And so yeah, I knew, because I pre-bought this game, the idea is it's Left 4 Dead, exactly like, you got the precedent with Vermintide, with rats. Again,
Yeah.
the Warhammer universe, obviously this is
The
Warhammer 40,
Fantasy, and this is Warhammer 40k.
This is Warhammer 40k. I love me a bit of Space Hulk, both the board game and the computer games
Glad you mentioned
renditions of it.
the board game, Geoff. Geoff, the board game came out in 1989.
Yeah.
I have been a fan of Space Hulk ever since the early 90s.
That's it.
I had the original Space Hulk Vengeance of the Blood Angels in 1995.
Yeah.
It was one of my favourite PC games after having the love of the board game and then just seeing it in a 3D Wolfenstein-esque sort of world.
Yeah.
But with the simple animations and the repeated sound effects, but it was an actual translation of the board game. All the board game missions and scenarios exactly in Vengeance of the Blood Angels, but all of the Blood Angels were voiced. And you could hear the monsters and you could hear the guns firing, and then when you go play the board game again, you'd be moving the Marines around and you'd be like, Bethor, cover this room.
You can imagine it.
You can just imagine it. And then of course I think it was 2014 the second edition of Space Hulk the board game came out, and I had to get it day one straight away in the line, and that's the first time I'd ever, I think first and last time I've ever been back to Games Workshop.
You're all right, got you back into it.
I'm never into Games Workshop, just some of their board games, not the big battles and all the codexes and all of the collectibles and painting. I think it's great, but it's just not
too
for
much,
me.
Too much for you, you got sort of flavours of geek, ain't you? And like your artistic geeks. Like our mate Adrian, he's really good at painting them, and so you could see why he'd be really into collecting miniatures of the
I know
sorts
some
of
people
things
that
he
just
loves.
love buying them and painting them, and they don't even play with them.
Yeah,
it's
that's
just
it,
that
yeah.
that is their hobby in itself, and
it is nice to have a strategy game, but if you buy the miniatures, you want them nice painted. You know, it is quite a big sort of part of it as well. So you either have to know somebody who's good at it, or
it has to be a dedicated hobby.
Pay them to paint it. Like, it just gets really expensive. But I mean, the 40k universe is just it's such a perfect universe for converting to computer games, and there have been like hit and misses, good ones and bad ones.
I've played a fair few of them over the time, and I honestly cannot remember any of their names.
Yeah.
All I remember, and I don't think I ever finished any of them, I always just walked away like, this is fine, it's just not for me. I've always found them very repetitive.
Yeah, I mean, there was the Warhammer Space Marine one, that was pretty good. I mean, it was like oh Jesus,
I know fans of the 40k universe are really enjoying the games.
Yeah.
And so I think that it is really, and that is why I'm attracted to this game, despite its negative reviews, because I am such a fan of the Space Hulk board game in itself.
Yeah.
Which is why I like the idea of this game
and
more than its final presentation.
And you're also a fan of Left 4 Dead.
Absolutely.
Any like horde, alien, or fucking anything mobbing you basically in a massive horde, and then you got co-op play to defeat them. That's
I love the scenario
formula.
of survivors got to get from A to B, and the enemy are going to throw different variations of its creatures at you at unexpected times from unexpected locations.
Yeah.
And with the case of the Gene Stealer Tyrannid, which is the monster in this game, which can come at you from
badass.
Anywhere. It's literally inspired by the Alien.
Yeah.
Ridley Scott's Alien, James Cameron's Aliens.
Yeah.
The way that they move, the way that they attack you from the shadows within the dark.
Look at that, idiot. So the AI is flawed still.
Now that is one of the big criticisms of the game, is that you'll have a healer.
Yes, which just died. So
that's
pretty much.
And he'll be walking around with med packs,
yeah.
but he will not heal himself, and he will not heal his teammates unless you, the librarian, specifically tell him to heal.
Yeah.
And that just feels really.
He's not the sharpest tool in the box.
I understand that the game's maybe trying to make you have other things to do, to make it more of a game.
Yeah,
but
I suppose.
it just seems like it should just be automatically programmed, and that also lends itself to the fact that when you play the single player on your own, you have that issue, instead of when you play multiplayer and each person plays one of these characters. You'll have a reliable healer, and you'll have a reliable librarian, and whoever's on the chain gun or the melee weapons or the flamethrower.
Yeah, you can have a structure and a strategy when you have got proper multiplayer. But what this is all about. I mean, it's just about tolerable. I'm doing the single player campaign. It's just about tolerable. What I will say is that this game, although it came out and has been terrible, the real question was, because Vermintide was very much the same. It was terribly optimized.
Yeah.
The question is, are the devs actively trying to fix it? Now, I had a quick look on the Steam reviews, and there's people sort of recently negatively rated this game because they're like, oh, the devs aren't doing anything. Well, the devs haven't released any kind of official patch updates yet, but if you opt into the beta system, they are doing beta patches, and this is the 4th beta patch that I recently updated this with, that I'm playing right now, and it was a 9 gigabyte download, but
so
I got that
4 months
going.
after release.
Yeah.
No official patch, just a beta patch.
Yeah, just a beta patch. So they are working on it. I mean, that says the devs haven't left it. They are working on it, but there's still a lot to do, and there's been massive improvements I found over when this game first came out. Bad enough was it when it first came out that I just thought, wow, I'm just gonna leave it. Come
it was
back
unplayable,
a little while later.
and I know you are particular with frame rates.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, it's not just the frame rates, it's the smoothness of the animation and everything.
You want to see the horde. You want to see a simulated horde of aliens coming at you.
Yeah, that's it. I want the working properly, and you know there were bugs all over the place. It was just terrible. But I've got this beta version, and yeah, there's still the odd glitch that still needs quite a lot of work, but they've come along in strides. And now Vermintide, when I first played Vermintide, again, that was a buggy, glitchy mess. Yeah. Graphics doing all sorts of weird things, and rat bodies like half ragdolling, half turning into geometric messes. Like, I came back to that a year later, and now Vermintide is a game I am regularly playing because they've added enough content to it and made it really awesome. They've optimized it fantastically, got all the multi-threading going, they've ironed out most of the glitches, all the animation is really well done. So once they iron out all the technical glitches, the actual sort of joy of the game comes through, and I think that this is going to be like that. It's just going to take quite a long time. If you're a massive Warhammer 40k fan, this game, it's not everything you want it to be. It's missing a lot. It's missing a lot of polish, but it's still pretty damn good. Now they've started to crest over some of the horrible technical glitches. Now I say that provisionally because I haven't tried the multiplayer yet, but at least in the single player, I've seen a huge stride forward in performance.
Now, the game, what do you think of the game graphically, Geoff? Now, I know you have a fairly decent PC with a pretty decent graphics card. Yeah. Now, so what are the graphics like in the game? For me, looking at them, I think they look pretty damn good. Even the textures look good. I think the textures on the Marines look amazing. Just looking at the creatures when they explode in front of you, I like all of the detail. Yeah. I think the lighting in this game is also quite fantastic.
Yeah, I think the lighting it's an Unreal 4 engine, and I think the lighting and the actual sort of core of the mechanics of the engine is covering a lot of sins. The Marines, that, like, I'm looking at the textures right there, and the Marines have a fairly sort of quite decent texturing themselves. There are some shaky textures in here which you think, well, they could probably be improved somewhat, but then, you know, the whole thing has a kind of really rustic, dark feel anyway, and it's got that kind of art style.
That's exactly what I was going to say, and it's, you know, coming from Dark Souls and spending a lot of time in churches and cathedrals. Going into cathedrals and churches in the 40k universe is like, oh my god, I'm back. You see all these, and this game has amazing architecture. It's absolutely stunning. It is the most authentically, atmospherically beautiful rendition of a 40k universe that I've ever seen. And so I highly praise the people that designed the levels and the environments, down to all the little rivets in the metal, the lighting, the steam vents. You know, I get feelings of Doom and Alien Isolation mixed with a little bit of Dark Souls. And it's against one of the most ferocious monsters I know in game history, the Gene Stealer. Now, the Gene Stealer in itself, it was always known in the 40k universe as an enigmatic creature, which they didn't really know that much about. They know they originated on this moon, and then before the Imperium could do anything about it, the Gene Stealer threat was popping up everywhere, and they were just called Gene Stealers. But now, in the 40k universe, they're known as Tyrannid Gene Stealers, and Gene Stealers are just a biological subgroup of Tyrannids. And usually when Gene Stealers turn up, it's usually a case of the fact that a Tyrannid invasion is following right behind it.
So,
and I like the idea of the Tyrannids. I was kind of a little bit disappointed that the Gene Stealers just ended up becoming part of this other army, essentially. Because I preferred the fact that they were aliens. They were the alien, the xenomorph. You know, it was just one of these creatures. You couldn't control it. And I love the idea that in the 40k universe, if they cannot defend the planet, even if there's some people left behind that they can't get to, they just nuke the planet from orbit. You know, you're just like, that's how you deal with this threat. And I love the idea of the Space Hulks, which is where these Marines are going into these huge ships, and fighting off these dormant gene stealers to get woken up as you find relics and try and complete your missions. And
Yeah.
so it's, as you said, it's a great basis for storytelling.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, the story in this game is, again, a little bit lacking.
Well, it really is very similar to the Space Hulk games, really, where it's just a kind of sequence of missions which highlight your, really kind of complete disconnection from any kind of context of what you're doing in the world. But then you are a space marine, your job is not to question, it's just
you're
you to get your
genetically modified
instructions
superhuman
and
in power armor.
Yeah, that's it. And so, there's not a huge amount of story. I think I'm going to die,
Yeah.
I couldn't get healed. I was surrounded. Let's go back to the menu here and let's see if there's any chance of getting multiplayer on the game.
Okay.
The main essence with this, I think, is to have entertaining and interesting levels and to capture the feel of being in a huge piece of what they call it, it's not Titan armor, is it? It's
power armor.
It's specifically Terminator armor.
Terminator armor, yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
Because you are in not just power armor, but fucking huge power armor. You are a massive load.
You kind of almost feel like you are riding a Titan from Titanfall, but within, that's the power you feel when you shoot the guns.
One server on with
as a
one
Terminator.
player.
One server and there's one player.
It's a lonely.
It's a lonely world.
It's a
Space
lonely
Hulk.
game in Space Hulk. But this is the problem if you're a developer and you release a game that's broken and buggy as hell.
Your player base will just go. They won't stick around.
That's it.
And especially if there's no word on the fact that you are making updating the game or patching it.
Yeah.
And again, this is why I'm worried about its console release as to what state that game will arrive on consoles in.
Yeah.
Will it actually sell? Because all the promotional material for Space Hulk Deathwing was super exciting. All of the trailers highlighting all of the classes, all of the weapons, and all of the levels, and then are they going to repeat that advert campaign for the console?
The other thing as well that was really annoying about the multiplayer is you can't play the campaign through hinged together as all one piece. You can only take these chapters and select them in, and then if you have for any reason get disconnected and have to reconnect from the game or anything, you basically start again with all your stuff. You have to unlock everything on each level, and you have to start again if you end up disconnecting from the thing. So you can play through all 9 chapters, but if you get to chapter 7 and get disconnected from the game, then you might as well. You can join you back in again at chapter 7, but you'll be back at square one as though you were playing chapter 1. So it's like they did not do very well with the way they designed the multiplayer. So again, something else that needed vast improvements. So we've got Brother Ramiel there.
You can tell he's a
so we've got
dedicated Space Hulk player.
We've got somebody there.
Yeah.
So I'm just reading up, see if we can get going. But select my class. You can still select your class. We'll go.
Now, the assault cannon is a devastating weapon. You just want to stand in a tight corridor and just hold the trigger. Except during the board game, if you have to reload that weapon and roll some horrible dice, you end up exploding as the gun overheats.
Yeah.
Also, lightning claws is you always have to question the Marine that decides he's going to engage the gene stealers, the aliens,
with lightning claws,
with basically serrated blades on his fists. He's going to Wolverine these aliens.
The other thing, you get the lightning claws, and you're like, well, why have I got lightning claws? These are just almost certain death.
You're front line of defense,
You think at least they would make you move a bit faster if you had lightning claws, but then that was kind of I mean, there's not that much that's I suppose, that logical about this universe. It's crazy, bombastic, over the top.
Well,
I mean, gigantic
yeah.
flying space stone cathedrals, for instance. Like, what is going on?
Yeah,
So I
but
get
it's kind of amazing.
it is cool, but crazy and ludicrous and ridiculous.
Yeah.
But the main thing is with this game is it is fun, but it's still got some way to go. But the devs have made some strides, which you can see if you're subscribed to the beta updates.
Yeah.
So I don't know, is that acceptable enough?
But is it
I'm
still
not
fun?
sure.
Is it still fun to play as it is in this beta stage, where you know, when you get into the scenario where you go into a giant room and then, you know, the Emperor tells you you've got to hold this room for the next 2.5 minutes while all these Gene Stealer swarms come out of air vents, ceiling ducts, coming through doors and attacking you from all over the place. Is that not fun, or is it still not enough fun compared to everything else that you have to do in the game?
I say it is fun, yeah.
Yeah.
And the better it, the smoother the experience is, the more fun it will be. You know, like, already having been able to shoot a horde of Gene Stealers and have those Gene Stealers animate properly their way all the way to me.
Because originally they would
skipping around,
getting
in my
jittery, and they
perspective,
would the Gene Stealers individually would pass through each other,
yeah,
as if
and
they
it would
were
just,
weightless as well.
Yeah, that's it. They didn't have any sort of sense of weight or substance to them, and it was just, you know, like, it was a bit like Aliens Colonial Marines, if anybody remembers what that was like. Instead of having lovely, like, smoothly animated aliens crawling their way speedily towards you, you just had jerky animations go skittering about on the wall, like, sort of sliding in places towards you. Do you know what I mean? Like, it looked fucking terrible.
It just immediately takes you out of it as well, because that's not what you're here for. You want that fast-paced combat action.
Exactly.
Now, from what I've seen in the game,
now,
the
look,
combat
I've got people
actually looks like it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, look, I've got people.
Yep.
The multiplayer's not entirely dead.
No.
Got two other people here with me on this multiplayer.
Now, I can only
game.
imagine that if as you're not communicating with your brothers right now,
yeah.
that people that wander off on their own are usually going to wind up dead. You can usually hold your own for a little while, but
looks like there's 4 of us as well. Yeah, it is like Left 4 Dead and Vermintide. You know, if you love these horde shooters, which I do, you will, you've got to stick together and combine your firepower and focus fire.
I like the idea of the replayability of this game. For me, comes down to its difficulty levels, and the fact that there are 4 difficulty levels, and the toughest difficulty in this game, you know, you cannot do it without teamwork. If you're not communicating and talking to teammates, you're just not going to do it.
Exactly.
It's punishingly difficult.
They come at you from too many angles.
And of course, there are later on there are enemies that have rocket launchers and guns as well.
Yeah.
And they can easily just pick you off at range, and they'll deadshot you with those frickin' rockets.
Yeah.
And
they're banging from turrets and all sorts of things. You need people to be. You got to have somebody who can do the hacking, somebody who can do the healing. You know, you got to take roles. Get one person with the massive great gun, the other person maybe with a shield or something like that.
Well, the maps as well are usually fairly large, and again, most of the scenarios and objectives are get from A to B, and it usually is from, you know, the 2 furthest points on the map.
Yeah.
But there are multiple
ways
ways to get to them, and there are different doorways and pathways that you can actually lock doors and open doors to create firefight scenarios where the way you're going to move through.
Yeah.
Although often or not, you're probably just going to find yourself sprinting in the dark towards the closest doorway, following the objective marker pointer telling you which way to go.
Depending on how many aliens are around you trying to kill you.
Yeah, and then if you end up in a room like this, you can just look around and just truly appreciate the artistry that's gone into creating these rooms.
Unreal 4 has got a fantastic lighting system and particle system, and
The shadows as well.
Yeah, that's it. That's what I mean. Like the lighting, the way it casts the shadows, and the way you get this kind of lighting does a lot. It covers a multitude of sins. You know, like you can have slightly rougher textures if the way the light bounces off them works and makes it more appealing, so that at a distance you can really appreciate it. Not many people spend a lot of their time scrutinizing textures up really closely, because that's not the point of the game.
Well, no, so what about the sound effects to the game? I'm going to say I love the meaty sound effects of the chain gun.
I've got to say the things that are important are there. There's no music, and I think that might
no
be
music
like
at all.
Yeah, it's only really atmospheric sound. There's no music or drama being added that way.
Yeah, it is very ambient. The spaceship, sort of the rustic sounds of pipes and the sounds
gurgling
of
and screaming.
Yeah, organic
and
creatures moving through the walls.
Yeah, all sorts of weird, horrible noises which make you jump and spin around, and there's something behind me, and you know what I mean.
But the lack of music and something that Left 4 Dead worked well was when the Horde came. So did that music.
Yeah.
When the tank creature turned up, so did the music change. And, so you can create extra tension by balancing orchestral moments, which is perfect for 40k and the Warhammer universe.
Yeah.
And then those moments of pure silence just before the Horde turn up. The game could do that.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, it is lacking in the music department and in creating that tension.
It is lacking in the music department. I mean, maybe the team didn't know anybody that could do it, or maybe it was a specific design choice. I don't really know.
Maybe. If it was an experiment, I would say it doesn't work. I like the idea, but you need some more music in the game to help you feel a little bit more connected to what you're doing. Otherwise, doing the same objective over and over again without that rallying music to get behind, it just doesn't feel. It feels anticlimactic.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, yeah. It is a bit anticlimactic. It's tough to know. Like if you were developing this game and you had to cut corners and you're like, all right, well, we can't afford to pay somebody. Music is one of the things that maybe you've got to go. It's got to go if you're on a real tight budget, and that's what I would say about this game, is that it does feel that there is a sense of a tight budget in its creation.
Yeah.
But it's created by fans. That's what it feels like it's to me. They've lovingly made the graphics as good as they can and as atmospheric as they can. They've made the sounds that like a storm bolter when the thud 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 of the Terminator armor padding around this this environment. It all sounds great. Like what they have done, they've tried to do as well as they can. But obviously, the nicer you make a game look, especially with like a modern engine, Unreal 4, it's going to be very resource heavy. Yeah, I've got a good computer, but it's not an amazing computer. There are obviously it's aging, and there are now many graphics cards out there which far surpass mine. And if you've got the budget, you can really get a lot more performance out of your graphics card than I've got here. So, and also there's nicer processors. Things keep moving on all the time, and this is a pretty new game using Unreal 4 engine. So, maybe if you've got a top tier system, you'll be thinking this is absolutely what problems, you know?
Yeah.
But
for the rest of us,
for the most of us, it did need work. It did need adjustment. It needed optimization, and things have come a long way, and so that looks really promising for the future.
Yeah, well, it's unfortunate that right now that when I was looking at the game, it had a Metacritic score of 60, which I think has dropped to 58.
Yeah.
IGN actually, I think they gave it a 6.4.
Yeah.
And GameSpot gave it a 4 out of 10.
Right.
So it is, just slightly above average to way under in its review scores. I cannot recommend the Steam version of this game as it is unless it's on a sale. And then I would recommend it. Myself, looking at either for the PS4 or the Xbox One, I'm going to have to wait and see what it looks like when it comes out, and maybe also just going to be a rental, or again wait for it to be very cheap or on an offer, and then consider getting it, because I like the gameplay. I like the cooperative nature of these games, and I hope that the developers do continue to work on the game and it does become a real labor of love, and a year from now is as good as Vermintide is a year after its original release, because at the moment, it's got numerous bugs, it's lacking that last bit of polish and optimization, a bit overly clunky looking menu systems with way too much text and information. It needs to be streamlined down a little bit for me. Sort out the AI. There's nothing they can do about the story now. There's no real oomph they can add to it. And hopefully just add some more replay in with more multiplayer missions and objectives.
Yeah, I think this is the thing. I would recommend this game because I think the developers... I think... From what I've seen of these beta updates, I think the developers are genuinely in to make this game as good as they can for their first hit round. And you think about a lot of much bigger budgeted, much bigger hyped games like Mass Effect, for instance.
Yeah.
And although they were narrative driven, some of the technical aspects and the design aspects from that were fucking unforgivably bad, really, and unforgivably basic. With like visiting the planets, having exactly the same things over and over again, the places to visit, that sort of stuff. But we all forgive that first one because 2 and 3 ended up being fantastic, and we saw the promise in the first one, and that enabled with the money to come in to develop the second and third ones as well as they did. So I would say, if it's on sale, definitely that's the sort of thing that if you've got a beast of a system, if you're a massive Warhammer 40k fan, or if you're a massive Horde co-op shooter fan and you're looking for something a bit different, this is worth a go. And if you give the devs whatever you deem to be worth the price for this game, either at sale or buy it full price, I think you will be enabling a team that will go on to do great work, I think. And especially if they do a sequel to this, they'll give it a much more pizzazz, much more polish, I think.
I just left the fact that you were running down that corridor and looking over your shoulder. You kept looking behind you. It's like, there's nothing there. Carry on going. You turn around, there's nothing there. You carry on going, and then bang! There's a horde right behind you.
Yeah, welcome to
great.
Space Hulk.
That's great.
Totally fucking surrounded.
Well, I just want to say thanks, Geoff, for the review. I just want to thanks for watching, everyone. Thanks for listening. We'll be back next Friday with another video game. Of course, film reviews on Thursdays. You can find us on Facebook, on Twitter, and on Patreon. Take it easy, everyone. See you next time.
See you later.